No.
Okay. Right, that really means we've started. Oh. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May meeting of the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. If everyone could stand up and face the flag at the back, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. Right, a couple of, or at least one main housekeeping item, and I will try to remind everybody at the end too. We just want to make sure that every board member who's here today has signed in. So be sure the sign up is at the back of the room, and I'll remind everybody at the end too, in case you're hitting that on the way out. So we have a full agenda of business items today, so I will try to keep us flowing through that, but I also want to ensure we have time to get through and adequately discuss all of those items. So we will work to make all of that happen. First and foremost, item number 4 is the agenda for today's meeting. Everyone on the board has had an opportunity to look at the agenda for today. Any comments, additions, or corrections to the agenda? Okay, hearing or seeing none online or in the room. All board members in favor of approving today's agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, agenda approved. Next up, number 5 on our consent agenda are the minutes from the April 19th board meeting. Again, that went out to the board members as part of the packet. We received a couple of comments directly to Carrie. She's working on those. Any comments, additions, edits to the minutes as presented from last meeting? Alice.
Can do what they did on the last. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments? Great. With the additions as identified, any additional comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Approved as presented with the amendments. Okay, next up, item 6, new business. We've got a number of items here. I want to start off with 6A, Hugh, with elections.
Good morning, everyone. It's that time of year again. And so we're up, elections will be held next month. And I'm going to read the list of those folks that are up for re-elections. First of all, the entire e-board is up. And they, at least as it currently sits, they'll all be running again for another year. We did a ballot with that. The folks that are up, that are on the board that are not e-board would be Eric Brown, Steve Willis, Deborah Kraus was, but I think Deborah has decided not to run. But I think Bob Hess is going to run in her place, and Paul Gilchrist. Those are up. We also received paperwork back already, and those have to send their paperwork in. We received paperwork back from David Zielinski, Pat Dreyer, Ernie, Lori, Tamara Johnson, and Heather Campbell. So that's who's coming. You'll be getting a ballot. The board members will all be getting a ballot in the mail prior to next meeting. So you'll have time to fill that out, bring it to the meeting. Also, I just want to say there are a number of new councils that have been formed since the last election. And not all of the councils are represented on the board. You don't have to be. It's purely an option. So if there are councils that are new that are not represented on the board and you would like to have a representative on the board, then you're going to need to contact Karen and she'll get you the appropriate paperwork to fill out prior to the election so we can get you on the ballot. If there's an advantage, the The advantage would be your fire safe council now has a vote, because you notice a lot of times when we vote on things, it's the board that votes. So if you want that opportunity, then I recommend that you give us the name and we'll run whoever from your council as another member of the board. We have enough slots. The problem was in the past, we didn't have enough. We had more fire safe councils than we had slots. So if you remember over last year, we changed our bylaws to allow more. So now we can do that. Any questions? Good. I think we sat back from the can.
So the takeaway there, Hugh, is that we will be putting out the election materials.
They'll be getting a ballot in
From
the board. All the board members will get a ballot in email prior to next election.
Any other questions for Hugh relative to elections? Okay, vote early, vote often, as they say.
We in Chicago.
I feel like it sometimes. Okay, next up, item 6B, and this came from a recommendation, well, a number of places, but very strongly from the, as Paul Penn calls it, it started out as the Grants 2.0 revision group, which did a phenomenal amount of work bringing forward some recommendations and a process that we'll talk about under old business. But one of the key pieces that came forward from that group and others is to really build a more robust presence in our grants coordination. We all know Pat is stepping down. He says he really is this time from the grants coordination. And I think we've just, like much of the work that he and Steve do, to be honest, and I know I'm guilty of this, take so much of it for granted. And the reality of it is there's just a phenomenal amount of work that goes on in all of that. And Pat's shouldered so much of that for a long time, but he is officially done, here in the next month or two. And with all the efforts going on, with new grants on the horizon and with managing our existing grants, we really need strong support, leadership, and really engagement in helping us manage that program, and in a way that requires it's a job anymore. It is not a volunteer program because of the amount of work it takes. And so moving forward, the recommendation was to reach out and hire a consultant or someone to manage that program for us on a limited term, part-time basis within the guidance that the Fire Safe Council bylaws and policies allow. So the executive board got together, met with Pat and reviewed and put together some options. And ultimately we reached out and asked for Tamara Johnston to give us an opportunity to look at a proposal from her. So that's what's on the agenda. And I've asked if Tamara would be willing to step out while we have the discussion, because obviously it's about her proposal to us. And obviously a big piece of this is Tamara's had such a long and amazingly engaging, presence from the Georgetown Divide Fire Safe Council, but also on this board, as well as just engaging in these issues around the county. So what I presented to all of the board members in email was Tamara's letter agreement that was presented to the executive board. We made some changes back and forth, engaged Pat, engaged members of the executive board and others to fine tune that. Ultimately, it comes down to, we would be budgeting for her for 10 hours a week on average. We negotiated a rate with her, and understanding she has a business, and if she's working 10 hours a week for us in this capacity, she's not working 10 hours a week in her business that does this. And so we had to have some discussion about, we recognize this is part of your job, but she was also willing to provide a discount on what she normally charges for doing this work, again, on a professional basis. So the $85 an hour rate reflects that discussion with her. I think the biggest discussion here, I want to make, obviously the executive board is very interested in full transparency with this group, understanding what we're putting forward. We have the authority under our policies as a council to go to provide sole source to a vendor under $50,000, meeting criteria. And we felt that in this case did that. But one of the chief discussions on the table, of course, is conflict of interest, recognizing that, Tamara, serves on this board and represents Georgetown and obviously is engaged in lots of grants on behalf of the council and on behalf of her associate Fire Safe Council. And bylaws are very clear about how to navigate or ensuring that we as a body navigate through and adjudicate any conflict of interest concerns, real or perceived. And I mistakenly, because I went right to the bylaws and saw a conflict of interest, and that's what I worked with Tamara, asked her to build into her letter of agreement. However, I picked the wrong article section. It's actually Article 6 that addresses specifically how to process and work through board members and potential financial gain and so forth. So before I put it out to the group for the board for any discussion, I just want to identify, and thank you to Steve Willis for helping me walk through this. But Article 6 addresses legal obligations and principles for board members. 6.01C utilize existing opportunities for sound management, such as utilizing in-house expertise for guidance rather than contracting outside. I think this is where the executive board, in consultation with the greater board, would be providing that guidance and ensuring that the person's working in concert with what our expectations are in alignment with policy. The next pertinent piece was 6.01E, to disqualify her or himself from any board decisions or action that might be perceived by any reasonable person as self-dealing or might result in personal gain by that board member. And so recognizing that the grants committee it evaluates and brings forward all of the grants that come through this council for consideration for fiscal sponsorship. And so I would propose, and you can register this away as we finish our conversation, but would propose that she would, if she were in this position, she would need to abstain, from making any of the decisions on approving grants to come forward. That would be left entirely up to the grants committee itself to bring the recommendations forward to the e-board. So that would be an opportunity to meet the intent of E. And then 6.01F is to make no financial profit except as provided for in the bylaws. And as Steve and I chatted, this also comes back to, really, we can address that back in 6.01C. That's the responsibility of the executive board, again, in consultation with the greater board, to ensure that we're following the policy and the bylaws to ensure there isn't a conflict and that we're managing that on a daily basis back to the group. So again, that's what we have on the table. I hope folks had an opportunity to look to what she was presenting. It's really broadening the scope and opportunity to have somebody engaging on a number of items as the landscape is changing for all of us, and this process is getting busier and more involved and working with different folks. And we truly felt that her proposal really addressed the kinds of things we felt that the council was engaging in and that were important for us as we listened to what the grants rewrite process group talked about and so forth. So with that, I would like to throw it to the board for questions. Chris.
Chris Payne, Patterson Ranch Fire Safe Council. I've known her for many years. She's very smart. She knows how to handle me.
That alone is why we want her. Sorry.
Business. I know about her activities since I've known her for many, many years. And I trust she knows her, how busy she is and would know whether or not this fits within her life. Big responsibility, as all of us know. But the one thing I wanted to also add is that, we would need to know today before we vote this, does she work from home? Does she work from our office, which you know I associated with the office, being your landlord.
I know.
Okay. We have to deal with. But I would love her to have some hours maybe where we could define her being at the office. I think more activities that happen there makes it the center and therefore important to us. As we explain who we are to others. Then I wanted, there was a technical point on her letter here. She identifies herself as Tamara Johnston fundraising consultant. Yet the job isn't that. Is it, or is it? Is there some aspect of her work that would be of a fundraising? I'll just leave that as a question to be filled in.
Well, I wonder if that, sorry, Janet Berenson. I wonder if that's just a technical term. She raises funds for projects. She raises funds for, I mean, not in the traditional, like a donation, gathering donations kinds of things. You know, how she addresses her title with her business.
No, I think it is, but I just want to bring it to our attention.
Mhm.
Because I saw it immediately. I deal with paperwork a lot, and so I saw that. I saw her letterhead, nonprofit fundraising consultant services. And I'm just bringing it up as just a point to consider, because this is a draft, right?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
So that's something to think about. And then the services themselves are in the first line of her letter to us. It says to engage in managing the grants process. So that's very clear. Those are my thoughts, Kim. I just wanted to bring those up.
No, appreciate that. And yes, this is a draft, and that was the whole idea. We wanted to make sure we get this right. And to answer the first piece, Chris, about the office hours. Yeah, I think it's going to be a blend. We don't want to tie things down too much because we want the flexibility, but at the same time, she absolutely will be participating in the executive board meetings to provide obviously critical program engagement and work, and then obviously working with the office staff as well. So I think we can definitely work that through as part of that process to ensure she's got presence there. Alice, I think.
Let's see, first of all, I think Tamara would be incredibly good at this for the council. At the same time, it's interesting when we go from an all volunteer, most of these organizations, you hire in administrative people, which has been really helpful, to then going to a whole different level. I mean, if my math is right here, I think that's equivalent of almost saying, obviously she's not working full time, but if she were, it's equivalent of about 180K. So this is a very different level that we're talking about here. And I know at least one volunteer who feel like therefore they don't really necessarily want to spend a lot of time on grants themselves volunteer anymore. And so we have to recognize that it's not just adding to the program that may make people who are doing a lot of work for free feel very different about being willing to do that.
I can think of a few people that are doing a lot of work for free. Okay, Hugh, did you have something that I want to get to?
No, I just had one little quick thing to say, and most people probably wouldn't pick up on it, but I was in the consulting business for a fair number of years. Did that. I charged a lot more than she did, but the one thing that she's agreed to do, she's not going to charge. She's going to give pro bono if she has to travel to meetings. She's not going to charge for that time. And I only say that because I did. My time was portal to portal when I did that. And most consultants, if you're in the business, then you know, many of them do that. So that's another thing that she's offered to do and not charge for that. So I think I just wanted to let people know that she did do that.
Ernie, I think was next.
Just a quick thing, if possible, I'd like to request a third bullet under the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council will. You can choose whatever word you want, but basically provide access to all El Dorado County Fire Safe Council grant program folders, the current and closed grants. This will give her a corporate knowledge of how the grants were written before and sort of how they evolved to the point today. Just a quick thing is like the defensible space. We over the years have gotten grant money from about 8 to 10 different grantors. So there's a little history where that would be available to you. Thank you.
Good comment, Ernie. Yes. Brief.
I just wanted to make a comment that at EDC-FSC is the fiscal sponsor for a lot of grants that come in from other councils, and it is a lot of work. And what Tamara is asking, I mean, she's not nearly going to get paid as many hours as she's actually going to be putting in. It is very time consuming. It is extremely tedious. I have not even understood the full capacity of what a grant takes, and she is very educated in this area. I believe it would be beneficial for us all to have somebody that could help us kind of move things smoother and faster. And I don't believe she is trying to work the system by asking for a few, dollars, if you will. But it is a very heavy responsibility and a massive workload that she's taking on.
So I'm looking in the room. I do have a question from Deborah Cruz online, and she put it in chat. But Deborah, if you're just willing to say that out loud, because I'm not 100% sure I understand what you're saying.
Hi, everybody. This is Deborah Cruz from Coloma Lotus. My question regarding adding a new project manager, basically a grants go-getter and manager. I think it's a great idea. I think Tamara is the rare person who could easily and smoothly fit in. My primary question was, we already have some fairly new positions for the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council, both including the relatively new position of grants coordinator. How will it change or mesh with the existing relatively new position? Will it reduce the number of hours by the grants coordinator? Will it change them? And could you remind me if the existing grants coordinator position is a full-time position or what level is that working at?
Yeah, no, very good question, Deborah. And here's what's happened. Remember, so just to bring everybody back up to see, remember, historically, we had one part-time clerk to the board. That's the position now that Carrie's filling. That's the position that Jody was filling until she moved on. Recognizing that program responsibilities, including grants, were taking up more and more effort and time to support, we added a second part-time position. And both of these positions are on average 15 hours a week, hired through what's now Search Pros, which is the temporary help work agency. So both Carrie and Jessica are working through that contract that we have with Search Pros. Over time, what's happening is as we're growing the chipping program, the defensible space program for seniors, and now adding the hazardous tree removal program, what's naturally evolving is Jessica is spending almost all of her time managing those three programs. The defensible space program isn't just $5,000 a year or $15,000 a year anymore. It's got really hundreds of thousands of dollars. with it, and multiple contractors and managing evaluators, all of this work in it. And so there's all of that. And then the chipping program continues to see, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars assigned to it. And then now going through the challenges of the website rewrite, and the three priorities are built, and they're working on them now, is fixing the challenges with the online application. And it's not just for the customer requesting service. The backroom part of those applications are notifications to the contractors. All the information exchange is occurring behind the scenes, all from the information that's tied to the website. Well, Jessica's spending most of her time working with those contractors, working with the IT vendor for the website, working with the customers. So short version of all of that, her 15 hours on average a week is now mostly being consumed with implementing those three programs funded by grants. So what's changed here is Pat was historically, again, doing the grants coordination as a volunteer. And if you look in and see what's in Tamara's proposal, it's not just being the grants go-getter. Of course, the position's always got that on the radar, but I can tell you what's occurring literally every day. The conversations between Pat and Jessica, between Pat and Janet as the treasurer, between Pat and every associate council that has a grant through the process, between Pat and every agency and organization that's funding us, and getting contracts put together, adjudicating invoice issues, rewriting project language when more money comes. This is a daily basis. And then it's reporting to the grantor, both from a project status perspective and also on a fiscal perspective. And so there's literally, it's an everyday, all day process that's going on just to try to manage $14 million in grants with multiple programs associated with these pieces, and working with our project managers. And so the reality of it is, we took a pause this year and trying to take on anything new until we have an opportunity to sort of reset. Well, this is resetting. This is where we're at, and getting the capacity on board to replace Pat with someone who has the capacity to do this is the change. Yes, it's in addition to adding the part-time Jessica position. And I do understand where Alice is coming from and others about, is it a disincentive for folks? And I get that could certainly be an issue, but what I also see is going to be a disincentive is the wheels are about to come to a crunching halt here, because it's not going to happen. And so I think a bigger disincentive is when this council can't support any of our associate councils because we don't have the capacity. And so I think this is going to be a give and take. I think this position really needs to support our volunteers and help them write the grants and help them follow the process that folks have been talking about to do a better job up front. There is so much work, it's the environmental, there's lots of things that we need to do up front to get ready for the grant application. And that's where this position really needs to help bring all that together and ensure that they're providing support to all of us out there who want to put projects forward. And so obviously we need to be hypersensitive that it's not a disincentive, but with all of the grant, and I'm going to put the number out there for y'all, with all of the grants that we have with us, and we project all the time because we live off of grants. And so we're constantly making sure that we can fund our organization's operations and do the things that we do. With all of the grants that we currently have in play, we have $700,000 in operating dollars over the course of that time. So it doesn't mean we're spending that willy-nilly, but at the end of the day, we're going to be going after and getting additional grants, of course, and we'll continue to get so what's the best way to utilize that? And we don't want it just sitting in the bank. We want to be fiscally conservative, but at the same time, we have reached a plateau where we need to better support this effort. Managing that amount of grants is not a volunteer job anymore. It takes too much effort. And I think we've got to be able to have an opportunity to provide that support at the level that it needs to be. So I see Alice's hand is up.
Huge challenge. So I didn't want to apply the 5 of them, but I I wonder, was this brought to the grants committee and how do it, grant workers particularly, we are talking about? And that 10 hours, is that assume they will continue to spend as much hours as they always have on grants? Because that may not be the case. And
Well-
again, I'm just talking about grants program in particular.
Yeah, the grants program brought this to us. So I guess, yes, and I guess what, I would guarantee you Pat's spending more than 10 hours a month on grants for free. So this doesn't reflect that, yes, the grants committee is going to be doing more. This doesn't take away from anything the grants group is doing, but when the grants group, leaves at the end of the meeting, how do we have somebody keeping all that moving? And how do we have someone to bring all that together? Who's reporting? Who's coordinating project reporting? Pat's doing all of that. Nobody's seeing that. He's doing all of that.
He's tired of my emails, I'll tell you that.
Chris.
So this conversation has brought up then more questions,
Good.
which I think is important to us. We're getting to a point now, and I don't know exactly where that point is, where we need an organizational chart. I'm a visual person, so I hear you speak because I don't know that you are, but you speak as these pieces and of these pieces, and I got a picture of how it all fits. I think right now, maybe we're there that we need just a simple organization chart. Here's my reason. Client roles and responsibilities and expectation, EDC, FSC will. See, it's the organization will. It's not saying the individual, or it's not doing a substructure of who that is. It just says the organization is going to meet. That's not good. On an agreement basis, I believe you should have specificity in terms of how is she going to meet and in what form is she going to meet with the organization. Now, to the point of Jessica, some of us have been here a long time. And I believe you're doing it in a proper way, that I just want to give you how it kind of reads with me. I think I understand the organization and what's changing. Somehow here don't. But there's a number of us here that have been here a long time. And we've been part of the decision-making related to you and the position you hold in terms of this position now today. And I just think it's important to recognize that we may be opinionated because we've been here a long time, but we care as much about the organization's future as anyone. And I think any of us that have been here this length of time would be able to substantiate what I'm saying. So those are a couple of things, Ken. Could you tackle maybe organizational chart, how that structure fits in our terms of what our future holds?
Yeah, I mean, and understand, I think a lot of this is we're learning as we go too, right? The landscape is changing. I think a year ago when we were first discussing the idea of a second part-time position to help with grants, we didn't envision where we were going to be going with the programs internally with the organization and how the need to ramp up the programs that the Fire Safe Council itself is delivering, what the workload was going to require to do that. So yes, I think absolutely providing we can put an org chart together that explains that. Essentially, for the folks that know, the bylaws are very clear about how we're organized. We don't have an executive officer, although the bylaws could allow for that, but the way we're organized is we have the board of directors, which, as Hugh said, it's been amended to incorporate the ability to have a representative from each of the fire safe councils, as well as the ability to bring in an at-large member like Eric Brown from SMUD. And then within that, we have the executive board, which is a subset who are the officers, again, elected each year, that really do the day-to-day business for the board and then bring that back to all of you. within the executive board, you have a chair, a vice chair, the secretary, the treasurer, and the parliamentarian. Parliamentarian ensures that we're following Robert's rule, the appropriate process, not necessarily Robert's rules, but the appropriate process for making decisions in the governance, doing our business. The secretary is performing all of the functions that we need to be legal, if you will, in terms of our insurance, our articles of incorporation, all those things to ensure we're meeting the intent as a 501c3 organization. The treasurer honestly is where the bulk of the business is happening right now. As we have ramped up, we are probably tenfold in the amount of invoices we're in the receipts that and the bills we're paying. Not only we're sending invoices to all of our grantors quarterly, periodically, we're also then having to go ahead and we're paying the contractors that are working for our programs, which has gone up. Even there's many contractors, there's lots of work going on. We have Title III obligations to adjudicate with the county to ensure we're reporting. All these things are happening. So these are all volunteer positions. And then the chair and the vice chair are just literally splitting the duties of the overall organizational structure and running the organization, attending meetings, providing all of those pieces. Again, so this is all volunteer. So historically, we had, again, going back in the last number of years anyway, we had a part-time clerk to the board. Again, all of these positions report to the executive board on behalf of the full board. So the clerk to the board provided that support, taking care of minutes, processing resolutions, ensuring we were, again, getting appropriate roll call votes, and then doing day-to-day business of the council. It was that front office piece, if you will. That's where we have really kind of broken the bank, if you will, and are looking at adding these positions. But the Fire Safe Council, for years, we've had the philosophy of, and I don't think this group feels any different, that we're not an employer. That when we start actually physically employing people, that's a whole new area for us to be in, being an employer with all of the responsibilities. And so we've tried to be very purposeful about using either consulting agreements or using our temporary help agency to be the employer and have that support. So we continue to have the need for the day-to-day business, all of our councils and doing the work. What's happened is again, talked about the workload increase. So Jessica is working in the same office at the Fire Safe Council office in Placerville with Carrie. They work side by side, but she's really evolved into, yes, learning about the grants. Pat's been helping her to the extent we've been able to have time, but she has really evolved as Janet's workload in paying bills has increased, her workload in spending the money has increased because she's day to day working with all the contractors and the clients. And so I guess we're coming back to you now with it's different than it was even a year ago. We didn't anticipate the amount of work that Jessica would be just on those programs. So in discussing it with Pat and the group and the grants rewrite folks, Paul, et cetera, it's like, yes, we truly think Pat's function is a separate standalone, coordinate the grants committee, but it's bigger than that. It's sort of be that grant liaison for the council. So, David.
Thank you. First off, someone online, could you all mute online? Never it might be you. So in the room static. Secondly, Janet, can you assure me that we have $40,000 or so to pay Cameron? We got it? Okay, you got it.
Yes.
Assured by Pat. And then the third thing is, I'd like to call the question, and I'll move with the question of Cameron.
And I'll second it.
There you go.
Okay, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Karen.
I just mention, Tamara has been a great mentor for a lot of us, but to your point, I got involved in Fire Safe Council in 2015 and on the board in 2016 in the general board. And in between now and then, the number of councils has more than doubled than what we had, back then. So we have double the amount of councils, which means we have so many people applying for grants and I mean, my husband would call Pat on a regular basis while working on our grants in mosquitoes, so I think it's an imperative that we move forward with Tamara.
So looking online, not seeing any further discussion. Rich, Wade. Get Rich a microphone, please.
Looking at Tamara's pro forma budget that she's provided to the council, and so she has made assumptions about how many grant proposals she would do, say annually 12 inspections and so many hours per inspection. So she's come up with, this itemization that provides for total estimate of some 48,000, just under the $50,000 limit. So I have two questions. One is, obviously this is pro forma, and if there's more than 12 applications, then obviously she'll be able to move her hours around to take care of whatever applications come in. But then also what strikes me in listening to this conversation is that there's going to become a point where the limit, the $50,000 limit that the executive board is allowed, executive committee is allowed to, utilize contractors, probably will need more money than that to actually conduct the business of the fire safety council and all the respective councils. So are we anticipating? Obviously, this is a good way to see how this is all going to work. And then, a year from now, we can see we actually need double that money to accommodate all the grants and all the work that has to be done. So that's one of the comments that I see this as just kind of a first step in really gauging the amount of resources that will be necessary to accommodate the full range of grants that might be requested.
So very good comments and question, Rich, and you're absolutely right. This was purposely proposed as a 1-year agreement to do just what you're saying as an opportunity. We can't guarantee that, forecast exactly how many grants and all of that. The best we could do is what we think based on past experience. We built that into it. And in her proposal and in our meeting with her, she felt very confident based on what she was proposing that she wouldn't need more than 10 hours a week to do that. I think this is for an opportunity for all of us to see over the next year, and I mean all of us, how this works. And I mean from the councils to the board, to the executive board, the grants committee. I want to make sure we're evaluating what impact is it having on the volunteers? How is she fitting in and making this work? What can we learn from this? And that at the end of the year, yes, we will come back. We'll have to make some decisions about where to go next. And come forward with some proposals based on what we've learned. And certainly, is it a longer term proposal? Do we go out to bid? We want to have that, but really sort of need this opportunity we are growing and we are building. And to sort of go to Chris's point, I can't forecast where we will look like even in the next 1 to 2 years. We've got potential, economic issues coming with budget reductions statewide. That could influence our grant opportunities. It could influence the availability of things. But right now, we're trying to see where things are going and sort of build to that. And I think we hopefully will come back, at the end of this year or prior to the year and be able to have some discussion and recommend where to go next. Chris.
As the second, I want to answer your question. I'm well aware of the structure of her agreement. I understand that $50,000 would require an item be brought back if it exceeds that. I would assume that we would know in advance that somebody would say, hey, it looks like for forecasting and we're going to need so and so.
Correct.
My second includes all of that. And also, I appreciate the fact that she's attempted to estimate based on her experience the workload that $50,000 would go towards. So that's also in my second. Thank you very much.
I want to grab Angel first and then to Paul.
Right? You just want to make sure that Tamara's role is really ask the grants committee to move forward. And you all have decided to move forward, and then it has to be awarded.
right? And then she would manage it. She's not gonna tell me no. I'm gonna go to the grants committee.
Well, I think she's going to be your sort of she'll be the facilitator of the grants committee. So she's going to bring her expertise, no different than Pat has, to the grants committee. So that when we have the call for, when folks are submitting grants, the group's getting together, having a discussion about who and which ones and the process, she's going to be helping all of the councils through that, no different than Pat's been doing now. Paul, and then Janet.
So we are victims of our own success. In order to remain successful, we need a grants person. So I want to call the question.
Very good. Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second on the floor. I will just add before taking the vote that we listen to the comments. What the e-board will do is take into consideration amending what has been proposed to accommodate the concerns, issues, reflect the correct conflict of interest bylaw section to ensure we are clearly giving clear direction as to how that should be done. So with that on the table, I'd like to call a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
okay, any, so to make sure I didn't miss anybody though, any opposition? Clear. Okay, hearing none.
There's a hand up.
I just wanted to confirm that Jessica will continue to work on the existing grants. We're, as a grantee, the Coloma-Lotus Council is paying 10% of our grant. And I just wanted to confirm that Jessica will continue working on existing CAL FIRE grants.
Yes, there will be no drop in any of that and only getting better because we'll have more, hopefully, capacity to be able to work with you.
Thank you. I totally support the new contract.
Thank you. Well, and I'm looking, it looks like everybody's muted that's on online here. So, let's see. I'll get it. Okay. All right, so based on that, based on the vote, the moving forward, entering into a contract with Tamara has been approved. Again, as committed, we will work back to finalize an acceptable agreement. The anticipated start date is in June, so that we can begin cross-pollination with Pat before he goes on another cruise. So, and okay, thank you, and thank you everybody for working with us and walking through that. And Hugh's going to go grab Tamara. We'll give her the news and then we'll work with her offline. To keep us moving, item 6C is new associate fire safe counsel, and Fort Jim has petitioned to be a new associate fire safe counsel under the County Fire Safe Council umbrella. And I don't know if anybody from Fort Jim is here today. Come, if you could pass you a mic, if you're willing to introduce yourself. Perfect. If you'd be willing to introduce yourself and tell us about Fort Jim.
That's how it works.
We are accepted as far as County Fire Safe Council. And we're looking at trying to also kind of include some existing ones to get rid of some gaps between Camino, between Texasville and Diamond Springs and Pleasant Valley. So we're going to be looking at some of the boundaries and trying to make it a little bit more seamless. And we're working with a lot of the neighbors already, getting them more what's going on. We have a lot of new neighbors from new home sales and so forth that have no clue what's going on. So, and my role originally was starting more from my business, which is general contractor, home inspections, and moving into fires. Simply put, physical limitations are moving me that direction, and I see a different need. And I'm moving towards it. So we're very excited to try to get some of the fuel out of our area. And looking forward to being the council and county.
Well, thank you. Jason, welcome. So with that, and of course, you know, you've got the full set of resources, and I understand from Karen, actually, do you have any thoughts, Karen, on from the new council formation?
Their application, their agreement, their code of conduct or conflict of interest forms, everything was. I can confirm that they have at least 3 board members. So
So they've met all of the criteria.
as soon as we get them approved, then I will contact the insurance company and.
Okay. So before we put to the vote, any questions for Jason or the team here? Chris Payne.
I have friends that live on Newtown. Just over the ridge from you guys. And I know that there's an easement that runs between Newtown Road and Fort Jim Road. And that easement's been used in emergencies. I respect your comments. I just hope that you're large enough in order to maybe take in some of these people that right now are not represented by this well, they're represented by this organization, always the entire county is. The El Dorado County Fire Safety Council, but on an individual associate fire safety council, hopefully you're going to pick up some of this ground and protect them in having an organization that will help them work.
And that is our thoughts and goals, and any information as far as current boundaries for fire safety councils that are in place are going to help us make that decision, simply because being that we're in a large valley next to Highway 50, we all have the same fire injuries going on.
Yes.
And we would rather not have gaps or islands in the middle that don't have representation.
Excellent.
So whatever information you have for us, Chris, we really look at.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, very good. Not seeing or hearing any other questions, like to put to the vote. The vote is bring Fort Jim on, which I believe is the number 30 Fire Safe Council in the west slope of the El Dorado County, under El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. So all those in favor of bringing Fort Jim on board as a Fire Safe Council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposition? So moved. Welcome, Jason and Fort Smith. And you got a thumbs up from Eric Brown at SMUD, so. Okay, moving on to item 7A in old business defensible space training update. I know we're deep in the throes of training.
Yeah. Wow. As many of you know, many of you, and there are some of you in the room have taken the training already. We finished 2 classes. We have a 3rd class scheduled for June 2nd and 3rd here, same time, same station, 8 o'clock, starting on the 2nd and the 3rd. We finished that. We will have had roughly 75 people trained to do defensible space home hardening assessments. So the June class is full. It's been full for weeks. But there are a few people that were in the other class that had to cancel. I'm going to be contacting them to see if they're interested in the June class. And I see some of them already going, huh? So that class instead of 25 will probably be 30, but I already have them if they all want it. If they don't, we'll let you know and open it up for a couple more. That will be just so you know, that will probably be the last class that we'll do this year, because we're getting into fire season. We'll do more next year, and we're looking forward to doing some refresher classes for those folks that have taken it this year. Sometime next year, maybe a shorter class, less time. We have all your information, all your contact information. We'll be keeping all of that, so we'll be able to get back to you. Okay. Any questions about any of that? Chris?
No, Alice first.
Oh, Alice first.
And so I'm curious, how many of those 75, how many fire safe councils will not have anybody who's gone from training?
That's a good question. I think there were a fair number. I do have a list. I didn't bring it with me, but I do have a list. Now, and I hate to say that because what I'm seeing, what's happening, and is like 3 or 4 days before the class, or somebody will call and say, hey, I canceled, I can't make it. So I have to rush around and try to find someone. If I don't have somebody on a reserve list, I will try to call a council that doesn't have any. And get them. It's not an over a lot, but there is a fair number. And I can do a list for that.
Okay, so I guess if your fire safety council has not had one training, or just to remind you, we are really trying to do a push to improve on learning. And so, next year we'll go.
Yeah, we'll get some more. We'll get some more. And the other thing, just because you as a particular fire safety council may not have someone that has taken the training, that doesn't mean that you could not call one of your neighbor fire safe councils that you know someone that does and ask them to come over maybe and go with you and assist you and do a few of those for you. You know, they're not limited just because you took the training from a particular fire safe council. You're not limited to your assessment just within that fire safe council boundary. Okay.
Jim,
Get a microphone, please.
Yes.
She took out one thing.
I am Kate, I'm the chair of the citizen. Morning, and Monday, the 22nd, it's next Monday at 6:30 p.m. here we bring the project to Lodge. Alice will be doing a 2-hour home gardening presentation.
Thank you.
So, Hugh, anything further on the?
Yeah, Jason.
Okay.
I do have a question. This is going a little bit further with it. For about a year now, I've been trying to get as much information as I can to change my business and retrain. And I realize that the upcoming fire safe home hardening is not going to be for certifications. I would like to find out how I can further that in my business, because I'm going to be doing this countywide, not just in El Dorado County, but also surrounding counties. And doing it for customers to help combat the insurance issues that are happening. With drone pictures, full color reports, and if there's any way that I can figure out how to get into a program to get that certification so that I can give my customers the confidence of what they are getting from this inspection process.
Absolutely. And I think that may be something we can either address in the future, or chat with you offline about, because there's a lot to unpack there, but
Yeah, we chatted about that a little bit
yeah.
ourselves, so.
No, but appreciate the comment, Jason. Okay, who else we got? Chris.
So Hugh called me up to ask me if I might be able to help with on-site training part of it, which is on the Saturday from 1:30 to 5. What I wanted to tell you is that it's surprising how many people have turned me down because they just feel uncomfortable. I would have never thought that, but then that's the world we're in today, is people don't want to be bothered somewhat by others, meaning coming on. Even when I pitch it in a very positive way. Right now, 856 Tombstone Court is my property, and you're invited, everyone is invited. The whole class is invited to come to my property. I can't get others to participate, then the variation that Hugh had spoke about with me is not, it would not be possible. So I guess my question is, am I enough if I only end up with my property?
Bluntly, no, okay, but not that there's anything wrong with your property. It's just that there's not enough for all our people to spend that much time. They'll only spend maybe 45 minutes at the most on each piece of property. So, but while I appreciate that, that's not, Chris, it's not unexpected. We've been through this before. We've all, Alice has done this, and with Oak Hill, I've done some with Texas Hill, and there are people, you do run into people that, you know, they believe that, oh, if they come look at my property, then I'm gonna, next thing you know, I'm gonna get a letter from the county. That is not true, but people believe that. And our position is we're not gonna try to force people to do that. It's clearly voluntary on their part. I will say, those people that we have looked at, once we got to their place and talked to them, they are extremely appreciative of the comments and everything that we've done. And also, Chris, not to worry, I did give Alice a heads up the other day that was a possibility. And so we will have that covered, but I do appreciate you looking into that. and trying to
I would assume you'd want to at least give me another week to see if I can pull it together before you go into any other direction.
Yeah, sure. That doesn't mean Alice won't continue our plan B,
No,
just in
you guys
case.
should do your alternatives.
Great. Yep, thank you.
Oops, Karen's got a question.
Just quickly, I attended all four of kind of worked at all four of those, and I am just amazed at what Hugh had pulled off, Ron, Elizabeth, and what Alice has done. So very much appreciated by everybody. I've learned a lot just sitting there. So good job, guys.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, again, an amazing amount of work went in behind the scenes to pull those off. So kudos to that entire crew. Okay, next up, item 7B, proposed guideline and criteria for grant application. We talked about it a bit ago. I want to turn the floor to Paul for an update on that process.
Good, almost afternoon. So you should have received version 5.1. I won't go into all the details. I'll just talk about the changes between the version we discussed last month and this version. Basically deleted, changed, and added. I deleted the Y because kind of moot right now. Then I changed the perspective from the grants 2.0 to the actual grants committee, because that really reflected the process. Now we have what I believe is the working document, and I added both the abbreviations, and after a long discussion with Mark Egbert from the RCD, I added a pre-RFP phase, which is in essence saying, hey, don't wait until there's a grant proposal, request for proposals coming out. Let's get our act together beforehand. It should be a year-round process, so that when something does come up, that we're able to pull it out of our back pocket and move forward quickly rather than scramble at the end. And that is, in essence, the difference between the earlier version and this version. I do want to express my thanks to everyone that contributed comments and thoughts throughout the process, and really to show my appreciation of Pat for all the work he did over these years. It's a thing that I would not want to do myself. So, Amber, and after that, we'll turn it back over to Ken. And entertain any questions that you might have.
Well, I think for the group, Paul, is what are next steps with the document? Are you looking for any additional comments? And then we are just moving it into sort of the, I realize it'll probably be a dynamic document over time, but where do you see us going next with this?
I'd say use this as the working document as a final for now, and I recommend that the grants committee review it annually and sooner if necessary, and modify it as appropriate.
Very good. Any questions, comments, Chris?
I took mine off aligned with the rest of the items for today's meeting. Mine says version 5.
On the bottom. Yeah, and that's actually still 5.1. I think as long as you have the pre-RFP phase on page 4, that is the most current version.
So essentially what you're saying is that my V5
Is really 5.1.
It should be 0.1.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
I'm gonna correct that.
That it?
Well, so I guess what I'll add to this is that while it's not a formal adoption, if you will, but this is because these are really guidelines. they're up for discussion, or an amending throughout the process. It's meant to be a living document. If you look at, where we're moving forward with Tamara's proposal for work, it involves training. A lot of what's in this document is what she's going to be using to help provide training and orientation and support to all the fire safe councils to get into the process and to help guide everybody. As Paul said before, not during or after when we run into the problems. It's also included engagement, as she said, with Mark Egbert at the RCD, but not just Mark. It'll be engagement with other project managers, because it's not always going to be the RCD doing the project management. For example, the Hazard Tree Project is Mason, Bruce, and Gerard. And so there's a whole piece here to help all of us in guidance as we're working with the project managers. So training is a big piece of what we're asking the grants facilitator, if you will, program manager to do, is to help guide and train all of us in the process. So, and this will be the document to help us get there.
It's kind of like in Pirates of the Caribbean about the Pirates Code. It's more like guidelines.
Well, good. So again, and I'll make sure we've got the latest version out if we had a misstep there, but
Yeah, just in the footer.
okay. And then otherwise, again, thoughts, feel free to forward those up through to Tamara, to Paul, or anyone else if you have thoughts going forward.
Yeah.
Yes, Pat.
Thank you. I just want to say a hats off to Paul and his very well organized approach to getting this done.
A full day.
Reminder of how this came about was in our last grant cycle, there was a lot of confusion about how the grant process actually worked, how we selected which grants we're going to support. And this put the structure to that and removed a lot of the mystique or mystery about my rather helter-skelter approach to doing the grants, to put some structure in there. A very professional approach, put it together, and now I think it's documented. How do we do this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Good job. Thank you, Paul.
Yes, likewise. Thank you. I believe you may have done some work from a ski lift.
Not a boat.
Yeah. Yes, never done it with Paul. Okay, item 8A, Chair's Report and Communication. So I'm just going to hit a couple of things here because I know we don't have Sue Henneke from the county on or the folks. So I want to make sure there's a couple of things, updates that I want to make sure folks have from her shop, and then we'll move on to Hugh and the Vice Chair report. But for folks hadn't seen it, the county is hosting a strategy workshop at 1:30 today at the EID headquarters office here in Placerville. I tried to get that out. The CAO, Tiffany Schmid, sent out an email to stakeholders probably almost 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago. And I tried to get that out to everybody on our email list. But essentially the wildfire strategy that the Board of Supervisors asked for, it's in a draft format. We've been taking comment, the county's been taking comment on it's ready for wildfire.edc.gov email. But today's an opportunity for people to show up in person, talk to the members of the coordination group, as well as there'll be an overview of the strategy, but it's really an opportunity to get feedback, discussion. And I think the county's really looking for some honest dialogue with partners, stakeholders, et cetera. So please, you can make that and want to go 1:30 today. The county is working on, it's made an offer. It should be announcing the program manager for the Office of Wildfire Preparedness and Resilience. So that, I believe that person will be on board the first week of June. So more will come out there, but they've officially made an offer, and there's a person moving into that spot. At the same time, the county is currently interviewing for senior defensible space inspector. So that will be the person that will actually manage the defensible space program itself for the county, providing some additional capacity inside the Office of Wildfire Preparedness, in addition to Clarissa Lowe, who is working as the analyst in there now. So that position should hopefully be filled here in the next several weeks. The county has, in partnership with CAL FIRE, has announced where it's county emphasis areas are for defensible space effort this year. And CAL FIRE has also put together its target hazard areas where it's going to be doing defensible space work. I will defer down when we get to Ron Phillips for his report on fire prevention. There's a lot of work going on under the defensible space working group, and Ron can kind of cover that full breadth of where that's going. But the information will be provided shortly on the OWOPR website, along with other places to where those emphasis areas are and how the program is going to be working this year. And then several of us had an opportunity to meet with County GIS and the Water Agency yesterday, including Steve from the RCD and Mark Egbert on the outward facing mapping tool. It's not far off where we've got the first blush of the building the data hub at the county level, where projects between agencies and organizations, including CWPP, RCD projects, CAL FIRE, Forest Service, will all be able to be located and managed in one location. So we'll be able to build maps, projects, coordinate in a much more real-time visual effort where all that's going to be. And the county's been building that and hosting it, and we'll host that in partnership with the Water Agency. But the first phase of that will be an outwardly facing mapping tool. For those that know GotNet at the county, where you can get basic parcel information and a little bit of functionality with drawing. This is sort of a little bit better than GotNet in the first blush. It's really more focused on fire prevention and fuels related data layers. So you'll be able to draw polygons, do some measurements, identify fire districts, fire safe councils, all of that. The next phases will start incorporating more heavy data. So where all of our projects are, all those things that are going to require more effort, and that's coming in future phases. But ultimately, there will be an opportunity for all of us to see in real time where projects are. And as we're proposing grants, we'll have the tools all in one place: congressional districts, legislative boundaries, board of supervisors boundaries. All these things will be there in one place, and so it'll be a work in progress. But the first phase is coming, hopefully, in the next month or so. We'll be able to see this first phase out. So it's kind of a good progress. So that's kind of the highlights from the program right now. David, question.
Thanks, Ken. Two things. I thought the county emphasis areas have already been announced. I felt like it was reading where they are, but they're not. It's not official yet.
Well, they're out there, but there has not really been an official sort of forward push of all of it.
So, yeah, where those areas.
Probably better, yeah. And
You might coordinate with Pat Manley in the Tahoe Central Sierra Initiative. They've got all kinds of mapping with LiDAR almost down to the individual trees. And so it might be a good coordination.
absolutely. Underneath the coordination group, there's a working group associated with data sharing. And so they're slowly building the pool of resources and outreach. That's very helpful to know, that because they want to access all of that and be able to partner.
So you're aware.
Yes, we've been talking to them. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I will refer to Vice Chair for anything additional. Hugh.
Just quickly, not a lot. I'll be at the community ID later this afternoon, but in the meantime, I'll be moving forward, trying to get everything geared up for our training on June the 2nd and 3rd. In addition to that, tomorrow I'll be attending FPOs, and then immediately after that, the Defensible Space Task Force. And then between now and next meeting, just the standard monthly meetings that are out there.
Thank you,
It's the
Hugh.
wrong seat to sit in.
Yeah. We may as well pass it back to the secretary, Karen, secretary's report.
So the only thing that I have is just to remind the councils that your renewal forms are due. Right now, out of 30 councils, I have 20. So
Wow.
I know, yay. Don't the other 10, don't make me sick Q on you. So, yeah, that's looking real good right now. And same thing with the board ballots, paperwork. I only have a couple that I need out. So other than that, I don't think I have A whole lot to report.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Next up, Janet with the treasurer's report, and we'll have two action items to vote on.
I apologize in advance. I have a lot of stuff to report on today, so please bear with me. But the first and foremost is I want to read to you the auditor's opinion from Vaughn Johnson, our CPA. We have the draft audit report, which says, in my opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the assets, liabilities, and net assets modified cash basis of the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council as of June 30th, 2022. Done.
That's all a good thing.
So that means she had no findings for us at all in her report. There were no recommendations. There were no. So I want to thank Maureen for all the work that she did. This is all her work that she did in this role here. I want to thank everybody on the board who got me information. Some of the fire safe councils I know I reached out to, and they were very timely in getting information for our audit. But this is a good thing. It will be posted on our website as soon as I get the final signed copy from her. We've given her the management letter, and so I think this is a super milestone for us. It's been since 2012 since we had our last audit. So
Wow. Well, yes, thank you. Yeah.
especially Pat, because Pat again got a lot of my emails.
No one's going to jail.
Councils that anticipate submitting grant. One of the major questions in the grant is, when was your last audit and what did the auditors say? So we've been, I think our last audit was 7 years ago.
It was almost 10, I think.
Yeah, and they like to have, it's good practice to have every 5 years. So we've got that covered now for the next 5 years for all of the associate council. And that's why this was a really important thing to do. Thank you, Jen.
Before you, let's see, check. Before you is the monthly treasurer's report. No material changes from prior month. I've added the AQMD chipping grant and the SMUD 2023 grant onto our grants sheet. I know there's some more grants coming, and if we get like one more, this is going to break into 2 pages. Any questions on the treasurer's report for the month of April?
So hearing and seeing, not hearing or seeing any questions, like to put the treasurer's report for the month of April before the board for vote. All those in favor of approving as presented by the treasurer, Janet, signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Okay. Approved as presented. Thank you, Janet.
Next up, in your packet was a piece of paper that looks like this, has lovely colors on it, and it is the proposed 23-24 budget for the Fire Safe Council. The green column is what we were working with this year. It was significantly higher because we had over budgeted for the administrative services for Jessica and Carrie. We have been charging Jessica's time to the grants, particularly the chipping grants. So her time did not get posted here. So although we budgeted $62,000, we only spent or proposed to spend around $25,000 in that line item. So the other material difference is we have, so going forward, that number is dropping to 26,000. That 26,000 is strictly for these two ladies over here. Now that we have made the amendment to add a contract for the grants coordinator, I will augment that line item to include that amount. The professional fees that we had on here estimated at $7,000 and is $0 next year. That was for the audit. That's why that has dropped off. We've retained the legal fees, even though we have not been using them. Other than that, everything more or less stays the same.
Okay, questions for Janet on the proposed budget for the next fiscal year? Ooh. Wow, okay. Okay, so
Anybody awake?
so with that, all those in favor of approving the proposed budget for 2024 or 2023-2024 as presented by the treasurer signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Okay, approved as presented. Thank you, Janet.
You guys are way too easy on me today. I appreciate it. Other items just from the treasurer. For those people who expect checks today, our accountant was off on vacation last week, so I don't expect to pick checks up until tomorrow. If you need to pick them up, please coordinate with Carrie for pickup. Otherwise, she will drop them off in the mail tomorrow when I get them to her. And then for our fire safe councils who have checking accounts under the El Dorado County EIN, our tax ID number, I will be sending you an email the first week of June with the process for reporting your activity, your treasurer's activity for our tax reporting purposes for our accountant. That will be due shortly after, probably it's the 10th of July. I'll just tell you now. I'll pick the 10th of July after your June bank statement is done, then so that you can reconcile. So it will be from the period July 1 through June 30th of 2023. And then those who don't get it back to me by the 10th, then you'll start hearing from me on a daily basis. With that, any other questions from treasurer's perspective?
The year it'd be 7/7/1/22.
Correct.
30th, 2020.
Yes, 7/1/22 through June 30th, 23.
Okay. All right, thank you, Janet. Next up, partners reports, 8E, it looks like looking back, number one, BLM. We've got Jason and team there. I'll put you guys up first. Welcome.
We got Lee House here today. He's the fuels design. And he's talking about expecting. Having to do with fuels. For the BLM, gearing up for fire season, Wilson Lake, and running through. Next week, being drive around for the big yellow buddies. We're at Gold Hill Fire Station. And it's very, when I went here, what is either coming up? It's California first marriage crew, one of the first all in crew. The other thing is South Magnolia and Burger Ranch, sheep and goats are out there grading. Very good out there.
Yeah, so we were able to burn 10 acres on Pine Hill. Last month, probably about a month ago now. So if you guys saw smoke in the air, my sign's on the highway.
I did.
That's what we were doing. You know, CAL FIRE working with the Pine Hill Preserve manager, worked most of the winters, you know, through the winter, well, beginning in the fall, through the winter, and in the spring, build hand piles. And then in coordination with CAL FIRE and the BLM engines up for Bakersfield, we were able to get those all removed from the landscape. So that one really left from Sudbury, you're looking real good this fire tractor. We're working our way that direction. You know, the main reason I wanted to stop in today and speak with you folks, you know, every time I come in, you guys are voting a new associate fire station. Apologize for those of you that are working before on this, but I just wanted to kind of highlight kind of the BLM's process to get work done. We have two main avenues to get work done. We've got the defensible space program that's designed for a homeowner, an individual homeowner to use. Maybe some of you in the room have heard of that. It's a pretty lengthy process. I actually have examples here of both processes, but it's a relatively lengthy process of back and forth between building maps and doing applications,
We still gotta go through the NEPA process and then the permitting process. It's a lengthy operation, not that it can't be done, but it really is designed more for an individual homeowner to do. Someone that has done work on their own land and they're looking across their fence and they're looking at the BLM, they're like, man, if only something can be done there. We do provide that avenue. Unfortunately, we don't provide any financial support for that. We just provide the NEPA support, the administrative support for that. So that is kind of the downside to the process. Our second process is, the preferred process that we'd like to see the fire safe councils use is approach us directly, Schroeder, myself, Jerry, come to us with a project. And we can work through that NEPA process and give you guys the clearance to do the work. I've heard the word grants about 50,000 times today. I think it's wonderful. How work is getting done on BLM lands in particular in El Dorado County is through fire safe councils and grants. I mean, you guys are applying for grants. You're addressing the need in your communities, and you're bringing those projects to the BLM. It's pretty easy. There's essentially 2 pieces of paper. There's a project initiation notice, which I have a copy of, and I'd be more than willing to share all this stuff I want to share. But fire safe councils, you guys, provide us with a project initiation and a map. If you have the ability to do shape files, that's great. If not, we can pick it up from there. We just pretty much need to know where you guys are working. And then there'll be a little bit of personal back and forth, between, you as the project proponent and, one of the BLM staff, typically myself, on some of the details of the project, if you want to run mastigators or if you just want to run handsaws or whatever the case may be. And then we write a NEPA. We have a couple of programmatics that we're able to tier to. And the process is relatively quick. So I think from our perspective, if there is, perhaps maybe a full boundary you'd like to do, rather than kind of pin down every one of those landowners as the fire safe council, you can kind of skip that whole process and go direct with us. So if there's any questions on that, I'll be around after the meeting. I'd be happy to show you guys my examples, and kind of provide you these the PIN particularly, or the defensible space application. I'd be happy to provide those to fire safe council electronically as well, if that's something you guys are interested in.
Can you repeat the names that we could contact?
Yeah, so we have the BLM Defensible Space Program, and that's designed primarily for the homeowner.
No, I'm sorry, you said names of people who could be contacted. Would you-
Oh, yeah, so Jason Schroeder, he's your primary contact with fire safe council. Myself, Lee Helgeson or David Helgeson, depends on who you are. David. That's me. And then Derek Martinez is the fire management officer for the Motorola and kayak.
Good. We have a question. Oh, Chris.
David's first.
Yes, the.
I have the device, so I take it from. Well, Jason, I can't help myself, I want to share it. That can be okay. That Veterans Fire Crew. Part-time, no benefits, no barracks, am I right?
Yeah, they're working on it right now.
They actually are working on it?
Working.
Christ, yeah. Unfortunately, they were once described by a politician as unskilled labor. And that somehow justifies not giving them anything. So I am a service officer for the American Legion and the Marine Corps League. It does annoy me, as you well know, that they're treated poorly, not as well as they should be. I'd like them to have full-time jobs for benefits. And so if any of them are having a hard time in any way, let me know. I got some funding available, little bits. We got it. I don't want them to have a bad season. So anything I can do.
We appreciate your continued time. And things are they're in progress, getting better. Those are all federal firefighters.
we'll kind of deal with the same issues.
We appreciate all the advocacy and all the support.
All right, well, let me know what I can do. Thank you. That's business to watch out.
First of all, thank you for being here. In the past, it hasn't been as consistent as you, Jason, have participated. Just to let you know, Jason came out to my house and I only live over here a couple miles. And he came out and took a look at what I was assessing, which I thought it was Bureau of Land Management property. As it turned out, it's Bureau of Reclamation property. So Ken, to the point of our partners here, one of the other ones now that I'm recognizing because of Jason's help is that the Bureau of Reclamation also has properties. And can we reach out to them if we haven't already to let them know that we do meet on a monthly basis? And it would be good to hear them report. Now, also, I guess my question comes down, Jason, to do they have to be here or can there be some kind of a mutual relationship between Bureau of Reclamation and Bureau of Land Management so that we can function and get someone to report, have somebody here at least that can report on the Bureau of Reclamation. If it's not them, it certainly the best would be somebody from CLM. And I just.
So Chris, maybe I can shorten that a bit. For once, we're one step ahead of you. But thanks to Michael Connell, we've already got the contact. The person's interested in coming. We just have to get that person on our agenda. So we're gonna. Yeah. Please, please.
So a couple things, you're looking at pretty much the fire program for, the whole month of the. So we are actually advertising right now another forestry fuel technician position that will be filling in soon. So we have 2 techs who are actually on the ground going out and working with the fire safety council support people. So that's pretty exciting for us. And then for the BOR, I have a weekly meeting with BOR. We have an agreement with them for 5 years with funding involved. They're not a land management agency, so they need a lot of help with fire management plans, resource management plans, things like that, fuel work, all different things. And so that's my job, is to help them with that.
Okay.
So I can always report back anything that needs to go to BOR at my weekly meeting. It's on Thursday, so
Perfect.
we can do that for sure.
Perfect. Thank you. And I also want to echo just with the engagement with Jason Schroeder. He's been, again, super busy, but he's been able to take time to engage with us. And it reminded me as Jason was talking that I forgot in my report about what some of the efforts recently at the county is. Office of Wildfire Preparedness and Resilience did apply for and did write a grant and apply for, with Jason's support, a $10 million grant through one of their fuels grants that is designed to help support the defensible space efforts and our local fire districts, and hopefully some for the Fire Safe Council all over the county, as well as FireWise coordination, and looking at projects where may be able to collaborate on existing BLM efforts. So that is in play. I can tell you the 2 people that wrote the grant don't do a lot of grant writing. They're sitting right here. So we'll see where that goes. But we definitely felt it was a critical one. And again, we spent some time with Jason before we put it in to make sure we were heading the right direction. So thank you guys for being here.
I'm Paul Gilchrist from the Cameron Park Fire City Council. Guys, thank you for doing the burn last month. Really appreciate it. We've been working with Chief Richards, and I hope to see you guys this Saturday at a town hall event. We have several elected officials and state elected officials being there. Clint Talk and Murray Alvarado Gill. So I hope you're there to talk about with the public with things. The good work that you guys have been doing.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Jason.
Yeah.
Microphone.
Beetle, it's got a lot of dead beetle things. I'm gonna have over 200 just on that property. So I like that.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason.
We're very familiar with that.
That's not a good sign. So, all right, thank you. All right, moving on, item 2, CAL FIRE. I don't see anybody from CAL FIRE in the room or online. So I know that Megan's on vacation this week.
Came out on a flash.
No vacation. So I covered item 3 for Sue with the County Office of Wildfire Preparedness. I don't see anybody online specifically for the Fire Chiefs Association, so I'm going to defer, nor the fire prevention officers, so I will defer to Ron Phillips to cover both 4 and 5.
Morning, everybody. Ron Phillips, representing the El Dorado County apparently Fire Chiefs Association and Fire Prevention Officers Association today. On behalf of the chiefs are scheduled to meet later on this month. 2 of the topics that we'll be discussing are CAL FIRE's recent subdivision survey program results here in the county, sharing information with the county chiefs as it relates to the impacts in their community, and discussing potential alternatives for the fire agencies to consider in implementing that program here locally. And then the second item is, and it's also related to the fire prevention officers. And as Ken mentioned earlier, we are continuing to work with the county on the defensible space ordinance update. Staff believes we have a final version of that document that is ready for public review. The goal is to bring the ordinance update to the Board of Supervisors sometime in July of this year for first reading, with a potential implementation date for the changes to the ordinance likely this fall. So we'll be briefing the county chiefs on that subject, and then moving forward with public comment and stakeholder feedback on that subject. As Ken mentioned, also the fire districts are also working now on their defensible space inspections. Several of the fire districts are working on performing defensible space inspections in their jurisdiction. The county is also working to do defensible space inspections in the Kelsey, Coloma Lotus, Texas Hill, and Outingdale areas of the county this year. So more to follow on that. And then finally, the last subject is just a reminder that the El Dorado County Fair is scheduled in the month of June. I believe the dates are June 15th through the 18th. And at the fair, there will be a joint fire safety and education event sponsored by the Forest Service, CAL FIRE, the Fire Safe Council, the county, and local fire districts. So I encourage you to participate in that. The theme this year is reduce your risk. So with that, end of report, unless there's any questions.
David.
Ron, did you repeat where you're doing the inspections again? I got Kelsey, Owen, down, I think Oak Hill, but I'm not in that one. Texas Hill and Global Lotus. Thank you. You guys are fasting. Thank you. The crowd got.
Thank you, Master.
All right, anything else for Ron? All right, thank you, Ron. I don't see anybody in the room or online from the El Dorado National Forest. Okay, moving on. Resource Conservation District. I believe we have Steve Graydon from the RCD.
Hi there, just a brief on. A lot of our projects are ongoing. We've been in the action for a while, from Epic 50, phase 2, phase beach. The road and Sierra Springs area is ongoing, vegetation. Mastication going on there. Sort of sounded by a fuel break is ongoing as well. We're implementing on Kelsey Ridge still on BLM properties. And continue that effort as long as it's safe to continue. And California Fire Restoration, of course, is ongoing out in Grizzly Flats, we're planning in Sierra Tahoe for upcoming. And then prevention projects with a handful of fire safe councils for roadside executed breaks are at the planning phase, getting through that phase coming up soon here, but working with fire safe councils that you're all familiar if you are involved. Otherwise, we've just been trying to make as much progress as we can between the windows of a lot of rain and wet soils and a lot of sun and a lot of dry soils and dry fuels. So try to just keep moving, keep everything going, and yeah, see what we can get done before when it's going to strictly planning.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for the RCD? Okay, thank you. Item 8, SMUD, we have Eric Brown online. Welcome, Eric.
Well, good morning. Eric Brown with SMUD in the Vegetation Management Department. Quick update as it relates to us. Actually two. Communications from our hydro generation team up in Fresh Pond continue to be regular and robust, fast melting snow conditions around Union Valley and points west of there. So just continue to be mindful of the water conditions on the American River, regardless of which fork you're on. In addition to that, we've got a pretty robust work activity, continued timber operations that are ongoing on the U.S. Forest Service land specifically that remain to continue to support our forest health and fuels reduction shaded fuel break work we've been working on since 2020. Our expectation is to complete all of that work by August or September. We have some nesting spotted owl habitat locations that we're working through with the forest at this time. Operations are ongoing up on the Poho Ridge area at this time, where we'll be skidding and decking logs for the Forest Service to sell in the near future as deck sales. And we will start operations back up in the Pollock Pines Camino area on Forest Service land starting likely the 29th of May. And we'll continue until operations are complete based on ground conditions and other scenarios. Again, as always, if there's anything I can answer question-wise, support-wise, or share further with the team, happy to do so. That's the end of my report. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric, and we definitely appreciate the partnership. Any questions for Eric? Okay, thank you. So looking at the next two items, I don't see either PG&E nor EDSO OES office here. So again, we'll continue to try to get them at our future meetings. So let's move on to item 9A, grants and funding. I know we've talked a lot already, but Pat, you have the floor.
I'll defer to Tamara.
We were really afraid that was going to happen.
We didn't participate in some of the opportunities that we discussed before. But we are actively executing the grants that we have. As you saw from Janet's report, there's a lot of grants on the books that we have not expended all the money because of the weather and the delays. And so I expect that will pick up rapidly. Also, Janet's muscled her way through the funding blockade, and I think we've got some funds flowing in. So that's always a good thing. The hazard tree grant, finally, we're moving forward. We are targeting 1 June for accepting applications from our residents. And it should be online on our web page. The announcement, we're still trying to work through some web issues, but that's just what we're trying to do. Our consultant, our contractor has been very accommodating and trying to help create some workarounds, paper copies that people can fill out and mail in, that sort of thing, until we can get the electronic versions perfected. Or maybe that's too strong a word. Usable. So that's all good news. We did have a pop-up opportunity, a defensible space grant opportunity came up from the California State Fire Safe Council that's funded by the Forest Service. They're going to award up to $500,000 to 8 counties, I believe, 8 organizations. So we want to be a very, very active and strong participant in that. I think we have a really good shot, thanks to the work that Ernie's done over the years and our contributions by SMUD and other organizations. We have a good track record of providing that service to our residents. And we have a good track record of funding partners, I think that we can build on. So looking forward to doing that. I think the due date is 15 June. So we'll be actively working that. That's all I have. Jessica, did you have anything you want to add?
I think you covered all of it. I just have to scan through my brain for hazardous tree. I think we're good. I don't know if we
No,
want me to wait.
yeah, we'll talk about, yeah.
I have a question.
Karen?
On the, oh, sorry. On the hazard tree removal, I understand the criteria for having the trees down, but are they going to leave the carcass of the tree there?
For debate right now, they're leaving it, chopping it into rounds because it is the homeowner's property. And so that's the approach right now, and moving those rounds so they're at least 30 feet from the resident.
But they will take care of the brush, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They'll chip all the brush and, yeah.
I believe David has his hand up.
I think we can help.
So,
So I'm gonna start out with just vets and seniors and then added a little bit, which I love, and appreciate that when you did that. One thing that came up recently, at the Home and Garden Fair was someone came up who was disabled, wasn't a senior, wasn't a vet, and wasn't necessarily, wasn't sure if it fit that lower income. So if we considered disabled and having that in a.
As our programs stand right now, the answer is yes, but they have to stay certified that they are not physically able to do the work and they're economically, they can't afford to pay for it. So if you're a rich disabled person, you don't qualify.
Okay, there's a lot of confusion over that too. It came up at the Home and Garden Fair. Because some of the fire safety councils have been telling people that it's one or the other, one of those three things. And we were told, no, it has to be at least, both the same level. So that needs to be really clear to people which one it is.
It is in the application.
Okay.
You read the details.
David,
I just want to give a shout out that it takes me 5 minutes or less, from the beginning of the phone call to the end to do the physical space applications. I've got an assessor's website up, it usually goes right to the parcel number and the stopping page for the end. So it's been mindless, quick, hopefully it's coming through. It says your application's been successfully submitted. So hats off to Ernie and Pat and Jessica and everyone involved with that. It's been a piece of cake. They haven't broken the website.
good. All right, thank you, David. Any other questions for Pat on grants? Okay, 9B Governance Committee. Karen, anything on governance?
Do we want to add the audit for the compliance calendar, maybe as?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
5 years, and then I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. And we may as well pass this back down. Pat can tell me which way to go. Item 10A, chipping, for the chipping program update.
I'll defer to Jessica.
There we go.
When we were going through the web page changes, a lot of my contractors and myself were having issues accessing the website. When I was able to access it, I had roughly 150 applications. And so I've been doing the best. They are all assigned, but my contractors received a massive influx of assignments and they are doing the best they can. Upon these website changes, Harry and myself have been receiving quite a bit of disgruntled emails, phone calls, text messages, and complaints about not being done fast enough. And I assure you that we are working to the best of our ability. And I do not dictate my contractors' schedules. I just inform them that jobs need to be done. And I allow them the opportunity 2 weeks to contact the homeowner and get them on a reasonable schedule that works for everybody. We're doing the best we can to play catch up, but it is something that is out of our control. It is a temporary issue that we are working to resolve. Same with defensible space. There were a lot of glitches, and so I did not receive a lot of applications. I am unsure if people were submitting applications because I did not receive any notification, which is something that we are working on. I have met with our IT person in terms of when somebody submits an application, me getting an email notification validating that it was submitted, because right now there is no email track of that sort. And so I have about 20 applications for defensible space that I haven't processed yet. I have processed roughly about 140. If an evaluator has come out, that means we accepted the application. And as it stands, also, since we did have a long winter and with the delays, our contractors for defensible space are also playing catch up and extremely tasked out. And it's going to take 1 to 2 months to complete these jobs from now, not since they applied. Unfortunately, I do understand some of you guys applied months ago, but we're working on it. And another thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is that we're not doing them in chronological order. They are based upon our contractors' convenience and schedule. If they have 2 homes or 3 homes next to each other, they will complete those in a group versus chronological order, but you will be taken care of. It's just a matter of time. I know last year we had a cutoff where we accepted a small amount of applications due to limited funding. This is the first year that we have opened it to an annual program year round. We are still accepting applications. And so it is not, it's been a lot. It's not, it's just something that this is my first year also, and I'm doing the best I can to figure out a more efficient way. With that being said, our IT person is transferring the defensible space program over to a digital database, just like our chipping program, which means we will have a lot more functionality and easeability and efficiency for everybody. We'll be able to have proper updates. It's going to be significantly easier, but right now everything's manual with defensible space. And so it gets a bit chaotic when I'm managing 150 different applications and some are still coming in. If there are applications that you're unsure of whether or not they come in, David, if you could please just send me an email and I'll look into it and make sure I receive them, because I am not sure if I have been receiving all of the ones that you have been so graciously helpful with helping people.
So Jessica, if it says application submit, oh, sorry. I was just assuming that your application has been successfully submitted meant that it.
So that is a notification you receive on your end. It does not mean that I actually received it on my end. So that is where I know that is where the problem has been, is that people are like, no, it says it was submitted, and I look in my email and it's not there. And so what we're trying to eliminate is that. And to where, because since it is manual, all the applications go to my Gmail, my defensible space Gmail. I take the application, I put it on a spreadsheet, I do everything else from there on. What we're trying to establish and it's in the process of being established. When you submit it, it'll come to me on WordPress, which is just like our chipping program. Therefore, it's all computerized. It's all on there. If you received an email saying it was submitted successfully, that means it is successfully in the database. There is no third party, if you will. So right now, there is a window that is sometimes being thrown through and sometimes it's not. And that is obviously an issue.
I told them, give it 2 weeks. If you haven't heard from anyone, bug me and I'll turn about somebody.
Yeah, and by all means, just, you can email me, what I need, I just need a name and a property address, and I will look it up and see whether or not I have actually received an
Well,
application.
if I were that efficient, I just thought my job was done.
Okay, we have a question from Alice.
One thing I'm a little concerned about, I understand how, when things were going smoothly, it made sense, for them to have ones in the same place. But now that if it's not chronological, we've got things going for months, we're basically creating a hazard in the county, because we've got a lot of tiles out there that have dried out completely. And so if it's not chronological, they're sitting there, these massive dried out parcels, but I'm not even sure. Kyle said, I'm not even sure the chippers gonna be able to do for them. They like to do them when they're fresh.
Are you referring to chipping or defensible space right now? Okay, chipping is chronological, defensible space is not. Sorry, I know I kind of lumped both of them into my topic right now, and I apologize for that. Chipping is chronological, but since we just received 150, they were all assigned on the same day.
Okay,
So
your help or additional help on your part, or if you hire one more contractor, is there any way?
I mean, we hiring another contractor is beyond, we already have 4 contractors that are servicing the entire county. And these 4 contractors are divided into 4 areas of the county. And so the workload is pretty equal and spaced out. But hiring a new contractor for an extremely short temporary issue doesn't seem like a long-term.
So bottom line is I'm definitely hearing the challenge and the issue. And so we don't get into all of this. We're already at 11:29. So we will work with Jessica on coming up with a way to try to expedite some of the older ones and get the process moving along. So any other, again, specific questions for this, Jason? Hang on, Jason, I think Nicole in the back was first. I'm sorry.
And we are trying to get through the shipping as quickly as we'll complete 3 yesterday. For our shipping to be completed. We tried to do them chronologically, however, I don't think that everyone's being through yet. And someone submitted something 2 weeks ago and someone submitted something yesterday. We're gonna get that, just make it more basically what we should do for
Jason.
So you're asking me already, should they be applying directly to you or just go on the website to apply? What is the most efficient way?
For chipping?
For any private contractor for clearing defensibles?
Oh, to become a contractor.
Yeah, so I'll just answer that. When we have a program, we open it up for bids specific to the program. Otherwise, the Fire Safe Council doesn't hire contractors outside of these organized programs. And so we're happy to share what we know, but we don't necessarily keep lists of contractors. Yeah, we can talk offline and sort of how that process works. I think we had a question in the back.
My understanding is
If you apply for chipping upon completion of defensible space. Yes, we are allocating a 3rd free service for the year if you apply, but you have to apply.
3rd free service.
Okay. You mean they didn't set up the piles? So another thing I want to bring to people's attention is this year we hired a lot of new evaluators and contractors, and something I wanted to bring up is if I'm allowed to call a meeting with all my evaluators and contractors just to ensure uniformity.
So I think.
But that, yes.
I know that. So we're getting into the nuts and bolts and weeds of the program. We're going to work with Jessica offline to take care of those issues and move on. I think at the end of the day, recognize a number of challenges here. Increase in workload in all of these programs, a website that's been non-functional at best, and an increase in program need and function across the board. Our commitment is it's not perfect. We recognize that. We're going to work back with staff to work through what the challenges are and provide you the service that you expect from this program that I don't think you're getting right now. And it's because we have a lot of challenges trying to get it done, increase in demand and technical issues. So if you've got specific questions offline, we're here. We can talk about these things offline, but I'd like to move the agenda on to other elements. Let's go. We've talked about chipping in defensible space. So item 10C, outreach and education, Alice.
Thank you. Let's see, so the Home Garden Show was, I think it was last weekend. Anyways, we had 3 days, we had a lot of rain. I want to really appreciate, we had 6 different fire safe councils with some volunteers. I want to thank them. That was Auckland Fairplay, Strawberry, Diamond Springs, Sandridge, Greenstone, and Oakville Fire Safe Council. It's really nice when we can get the a lot of people from around the county to help. The fair is coming up, as Ron mentioned, and I do have a list here. I'm still looking, especially for volunteers, believe it or not, on Saturday of the fair, which is June 17th. So instead of running out the door, please come and sign up your fire safe council and 1 or 2 volunteers. That would be great. It is a chance for us, like Ron said, we're going to be there with a whole lot of other agencies, CAL FIRE, OAPRA, RCD, Forest Service, and one more again. Anyway, so it's a nice opportunity. Also, a lot of people have been borrowing stuff from the closet, which is wonderful. I love seeing it get out there. Please, though, if you do borrow it, please be very specific as to what you're borrowing. Just saying something like, project doesn't help me, because like when I went to get stuff for the fair and Home and Garden Show, some things were missed, but I thought I was going to be able to borrow, and I didn't know who to contact. So please be real specific when you do sign up things. And again, I appreciate that people are borrowing them. It's good. Also, Smoke Chasers is in Illinois County. You've probably heard about that. That's their big giant event. That's going to be this weekend on Saturday from 11 to 7 p.m. There's been some talk, some people are interested in seeing something like that in El Dorado County instead of all of our individual wildfire fairs. And so it's not necessarily something we're going to do, but if anybody goes there, I'd be interested in hearing what your feedback is as to how you like it. Thank you.
And Alice, anything? I know you're part of the outreach efforts countywide that's CAL FIRE is leading.
Outreach committee, and I'm anyway, we're represented there. And one thing that's coming up that's kind of exciting is their new website. One page is going to be for public outreach, and it's going to include articles that people can also take from their newsletter, in addition to stuff you can take already from the Glendale Fire Club. There will be stuff from CAL FIRE and various things like that that will be available for to take. Is that what you're talking about?
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure everybody said Ellis is like in all of these things representing us right now and doing an amazing job. So yes, thank you again very much. 10D, new council formation orientation. Karen, anything new there that we haven't discussed? Okay, nothing new to report. Item 11, community council reports. Reports from what's going on around the associate councils in the county. In the back. Thank you. See, we have, we'll start with Karen. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alice, we worked, the Home and Garden Show. And we had a great time doing that. We met a lot of people at the Home and Garden Show when we worked. So that was really great. And I brought a new person who is learning the ropes as well. And then we're looking to get you up to Mosquito. Thanks.
Thank you. Actually, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, we were really impressed with how many people we did connect with, even though it was raining. Pretty much just like the fair. So I'm wondering if it's something that maybe some in the future where we might again get more people involved in terms of the agency government. But yeah, it was a good event.
Always good, yeah.
Right, thank you. Paul.
So on May 20th, from 5 to 7:30, the Cameron Park, Greater Cameron Park Area Fire Safe Council will be partnering with Cameron Park CSD, hosting a town hall meeting. Our keynote speakers are Congressman Tom McClintock, State Senator Marie Alvarado Gill. They will both be talking about what they're doing legislatively to produce and help for wildfire in the rural areas of California. Sheriff Lykoff will be there to talk about what OES does. We also will have the Department of Insurance representative speaking about the FAIR plan and updating the community as to what's occurring there. EID is going to be there with who discussing and talking about the things they're doing in the county. We have OES will have a booth to talk also further about their services. First responders in our fire state council, there are, I believe, 7 of them: BLM, tribal fire, county fire, Hamlet Park fire, Cal fire, rescue fire, and El Dorado Hills fire will all be there providing information as well. And we will be doing a burn simulation of the Pine Hill Preserve with the treated areas that the work has been done and what it would look like if it wasn't. So people can really start to begin to understand the value of defensible space around these areas. Your report.
Thank you, Paul. Any other comments? Let's see, we'll go with Paul Penn and then we'll go back to Michael.
On April 29th, we held our own fire safe fair here at the Lions Hall and had close to 200 people come through. It was, I think it really went well. It also helped to coalesce our organization that was somewhat, in organizational VFib. I think he gave it the cordial thump, miss, and we had over 18 exhibitors. It really went well, and we look forward to possibility of the county doing a large one, and then having specific events to follow up on that. So it was just it was a lot of work, but I think it had a lot of benefit to the participants. I think the exhibitors found it valuable also. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Michael.
Yeah, Mike Howard, Operating Trails. This weekend on the 20th, we're having our largest community event. It's Whip's Yard Sale, and the Fire Safe Council will have a booth. But we're also being joined by the Commission on Aging for them to make presentations to our community, following on what they presented here a couple months ago. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. All right, anything else for council reports? Okay, make sure I'm not missing anyone. Okay, moving on next, project reports so far, Tamara or David? Nothing even.
With your permission, I'll just as fast as I can for a number.
Fast is good. Fast is good.
So this evening, might I mention like Dan Bolster's doing this evening? All right, anyway, the county's got an evacuation strategy meeting this evening in Building C from 6:30 to 8, and that's Colorado County Transportation Commission, I think it is. All right, what else is there? There's gonna be a field trip up to Plumas County. It's gonna take about 13 hours, leave at 7 in the morning. Let me know if you're interested. I'm not sure I'm gonna do it either, but it's so that we can see what happened to Greenville, which was totally destroyed. But they're rebuilding it with their biomass products they're creating. And there's Crescent Mills, which is trying to make alternative biomass products so that we can get all that biomass that is just wasted. And we're also going to see a Plumas County building will run on energy from that biomass. So yeah, was trying to bring all that to El Dorado County. June 8th, leave at 7 in the morning. Should come back. God knows.
Where's the meeting?
I got it. Oh, okay, sorry. Right. Okay, let's see what else we got. There's I'll do wrap 2, May 23rd at 1 o'clock. We've got Paul Silvers as a wrap meeting, which is basically wildfire responses and it's a homeowners insurance group. And then also they're going to have on June 9th a special Zoom helping navigate purchasing insurance, including with the fair plan. May 18th, 19th, May 20th, there's going to be various demonstrations by the I think newly formed El Dorado Amador and Striped Bird Association. I know our fire state council is trying to stay away from it because of liability, but this is the University of California is behind all this, and some of that will be up at the project. So you know about that. And I'm just trying to see if there's anything else I should tell you. There are other so far meetings, June 14th, 1:30, there'll be a science talk. I think that might be a hybrid, haven't I got the details yet. Biomass, there will be an online meeting on June 22nd. And I'll be merciful and stop. Chris, you want that?
Very good. Thank you, David. And yes, biomass working group update, Chris.
As I commented, I'm kind of the person that takes in information on biomass and cogenerations and presents it to you. My contact is Greg Stanton, who's the county individual by contract who handles the county's business related to cogeneration and biomass. And so here's what he says about this field trip. It's a field trip to Plumas County on June 8th. So June 8th is the date to visit the Indian Valley Wood Innovations Campus, the combined heat power biomass cogeneration plant that provides heat for the county's HHSA building, and a visit to some homes construction with timber, with coming off of the mass that they have available. Supervisors Carlin and Turnbull will be attending along with several individuals from SOFAR. We are also setting up a follow-up meeting with SPI. You've heard me talk about the site in Camino. If you want to look at the minutes, I reported last month. They're setting up a follow-up meeting because of that analysis that they just finished. And so they're following up with that. Now, I asked him, I said, I understand the Plumas tour is by invitation only. Is that correct? And here's what he said. Remember, it's June 8th. The invite went out to other groups beyond SOFAR. I'm sure if someone from FSC, meaning the Fire Safety Council, this one, wants to go, it would be fine. We will be leaving carpooling at 7 a.m. from Placerville. I assume that's the campus, the governmental campus, building AB. But anyway, that was the answer to that. And that's my report.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, David. Okay, item 13, public comment. I believe we've got at least one individual has indicated he wanted to speak. I'll ask him to step up if he's here and take the microphone. And again, we have opportunity for 3 minutes or less.
My name is Kurt Kruger. I'm a resident of Auburn Lake Trails. I'm a former firefighter, EMT ambulance driver, and currently on the Auburn Lake Trails Fire Council. But I'm here as a resident, not representing the Fire Council. Last year, mosquito fire, a number of our communities were under an evacuation warning. And our recommendation, of course, is that when you get a warning, leave. Well, anyone who has livestock, talking about horses, mules, things of that sort, their option at that point was to drive all the way to Sacramento as the only place to put your animals. Well, there appears to be a solution. I'm talking to Henry Cisneros about this and the people at SCAR as well. The county owns 64 acres of land adjacent to Cronin Ranch, and the county is trying to figure out what to do with that land. Among the choices they're looking at was to establish an equestrian parking area. I'm trying to raise awareness of the concept of taking about a third of that land, 20, 30 acres, and designating it as an equestrian evacuation center. Either as a place to leave the animals throughout an event, or as fire people call it, a lily pad, where people would bring their animals, they'd be transported further along. So currently, there's an ad hoc committee evaluating the recreation opportunities for that land. I'd like to make sure that they consider the possibility of improving the evacuation process by having a local evacuation center. This would mostly affecting the residents of Georgetown, Greenwood, Cool, Pilot Hill, Garden Valley, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. And I know that Kurt's got information and encourage folks if they're interested to see Kurt after the meeting. He's got, again, some additional information. Any other public comment? Okay, and lastly, good of the order. Before we adjourn, our next meeting is scheduled for June 21st. Thank you, everybody, for your participation today and sticking with us for the extra 18 minutes. So thank you again. Bye. Or 20.